Breaking news this morning. After 2 years, the Israeli hostages are finally home. The war in Gaza is over. President Trump is getting a standing ovation at the Knesset for ending it. And still, the Nobel Committee refuses to give the man his Peace Prize. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. Christian foster parents in Massachusetts are losing their kids because they refuse to sign an LGBT pledge. We'll get into what all of that means. First, I want to tell you about Cow Guys. Go to cowguys.shop. Big Pharma screwed up your skincare, didn't they? That now you can't pronounce, not only can you not pronounce every ingredient on your lotion bottle, you probably can't pronounce any of them. Does your moisturizer read like a lab report? What Big Pharma did to food, they did to skincare too. They use slick marketing to convince us to rub industrial byproduct on our faces. Here's the problem. Skin issues are extremely common nowadays. Seems everyone knows someone struggling with bad skin or some sort of skin condition. Here's the truth. Tallow is what we used for generations before chemical companies took over. It's what your skin actually understands because it's biologically appropriate, an organic compound that is bioidentical to your skin barrier. Cow Guys is rancher-owned, has no synthetics. You use it as lotion for hands, arms, legs, face, and lips. Skin that glows morning and night. It's natural, smells great. Search up cowguys.shop to get your bottle and get a second one for free. No special code needed. 6 to 8 months of moisturizer for $34. I got tallow skin pilled about a year ago by sweet little Elise. I was very, very skeptical. It's great. I use it underarm. I use it. It's fantastic. It's really wonderful. Go to cowguys.shop. Grab 2 bottles for the price of 1. Big day, folks. First of all, I woke up, I was a little salty because today is a federal holiday. And the federal holiday, it's not Indigenous Peoples Day. It's not just Monday, October 13th. It is Columbus Day, the day that we celebrate the man who discovered America, the brave Italian explorer. It's a federal holiday. And the anti-Italian discrimination at the DailyWire and many other companies has got to stop. Even though, frankly, I would have come into work anyway today because there's so much to talk about. I love celebrating Columbus. And there was this breaking news. What immediately cured my salt this morning was I wake up, a little bit of a nail biter. We're waiting. The hostages were supposed to be released yesterday. We're waiting. I'm updating my news. Did it happen? Did Hamas make good? Did Trump end this war? Did he actually end this war? And the answer is yes, he did. The 20 living hostages were released. Hamas, after lying, after deceit, after stalling, after pulling all this out for 2 years since they took the hostages, they finally were made to release the hostages. This after President Trump said, hey, Hamas, I'm giving you one last chance or I'm going to blow you off the face of the earth. And they did it. So it was not a stall tactic. And it was not merely a stall tactic. They actually released the hostages. That was the last serious remaining card that Hamas had to keep the war going. I guess they do still have the remains of the dead hostages, which they're supposedly going to be releasing later today or tomorrow. Again, we'll see. Even if they hold the remains of the dead hostages ransom, for all intents and purposes, the war is over. President Trump ended the war. Israel acknowledges that President Trump ended the war. The Nobel Prize Committee will not acknowledge that. We'll get to that momentarily because there's even a fun little caveat to that story. But Trump did it. He did it. He said he would do it. His haters on the left and on the right, his haters who were pro-Palestine, maybe some were pro-Israel. Israel's pretty pro-Trump. But all these guys all over, they said he couldn't do it, he wouldn't do it, and he did it, okay? And he got a standing ovation at the Knesset. And he did take a little bit of a victory lap, going all the way back. You remember 10 years we were told that Donald Trump is a maniac, he's a cowboy, he's a loose cannon, he's going to cause wars all over the world, he's going to usher in World War III. Here's what he said.
Good to say it. But when you settle 8 wars in 8 months, that means you don't like war. Everyone thought I was going to be brutal. In fact, I remember Hillary Clinton during a debate, she said, look at him, he's going to go to war with everybody. And actually, she said, he's got a personality that's all about war. No, and my personality actually is all about stopping wars, and it seems to work. It seems to work. But it also means this name change and our attitude that we're not going to go into a war, but if we do, we're going to win that war like nobody has ever won a war before. We will not be politically correct, but we're not going to be there. And I think, you know, as you mentioned.
There you have it. There you have it. They said my personality was for war, and I think my personality is for stopping wars. It's not just over the past 2 years since the Israel-Gaza war broke out on Joe Biden's watch during the little interregnum when they booted Trump out of office. It's not just during this time that they've said I'm pro-war. They've been saying this for 10 years. How many wars do I need to stop before you realize that my interest is in making peace? It's a real subversion of the liberal media expectation of Trump. What's the other thing they say about Trump? They say he's a megalomaniac. He takes credit for everything. He's all about retribution. He never forgives his enemies. Here's the next thing President Trump said about peace in the Middle East.
And then you're going to add a man named Marco Rubio, who is also here. That's right. And I have a prediction that Marco will go down, I mean this, as the greatest Secretary of State in the history of the United States. I believe that. I believe it. And he and I, you know, we really fought it out. You remember, he was tough. He was nasty. Who the hell thought this was going to happen, Marco, right? And now I'm saying he's going to go down as the greatest. He will. He was always smart and sharp, and people respect him. And then we have somebody.
This in some ways is the most. I won't say shocking because it doesn't shock me, but I think it's going to shock most people. The most shocking news of the day, even beyond the Israel war ending, even beyond the hostages being released, Trump sharing credit, saying, you know, it's really not all me. How about the Secretary of State who negotiated the end to this war? This guy, Marco Rubio, not just any Secretary of State. He's not just sharing credit with any staffer that he's got. He's sharing credit with the guy who ran against him for president in 2016 and who ran a nasty campaign. Remember, he made the little hands joke. He was insulting Trump's masculinity. And Trump says, you're going to go down as the greatest Secretary of State ever, and you were always sharp, and you were always great. This subverts people's expectations. Again, not my expectation, because I think I've had this guy's number almost from the beginning. Maybe it's because I'm a New Yorker. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's because I've got a little bit of a wider political imagination, and I think a lot of you do as well. This should have been obvious. A lot of this stuff should have been obvious. The wrongness of the establishment media and the political left should have been obvious from the beginning. But even just getting down to what Hillary accused him of. You like Trump and you're going to get more peace. That's what? He was going to cause more wars. Why? It was very simple. We had been doing something for many, many years. And then Trump came in and legitimately represented a change. His enemies were right about that. When his enemies came in and said, Trump is something totally different that we've seen in our lifetimes, they were right about that. Trump's enemies on the left said that. The Republican establishment said that. They all agreed. Trump represented something different. The error they made is they said, Trump represents a break. He represents something totally different, and therefore you're going to get more of the same. Hold on, wait. That doesn't follow. That's a non sequitur. But that's what is meant when Hillary Clinton says, if you elect Trump, you're going to get a lot of war. Hold on. It's you people who have given us a lot of war. It's you people. You, Hillary, as Secretary of State, certainly not the best Secretary of State in American history. It's you, Barack Obama. It's you, George Bush, for that matter. It's you, Bill Clinton. If you guys all represent something, broadly speaking, and then Trump represents something totally different, then it follows that if you guys have all brought us a ton of war all over the place, going back before 9/11, DailyWire has a new series out on the USS Cole. An intelligence failure and a failure of the Clinton administration to respond to the USS Cole that allows 9/11 to happen, that gets us into war in Afghanistan, that then they get us into war in Iraq, then they get us into war in Libya, then they support the collapse of Egypt, then for 20 years. You guys did that. With you guys, we got more war. If Trump represents something legitimately different, then of course you should expect that he's going to give you peace. And yet somehow, these people don't get it. The Nobel Prize Committee doesn't get it. However, the Nobel Peace Prize winner does, which puts egg on the face of all the committee members. We'll get to that momentarily. First, I want to tell you about Done with Debt. Go to donewithdebt.com. Are you drowning in credit card and loan debt? You are not alone. Here's something most people don't know. Fall is actually the best time of year to negotiate with your lenders. Why fall? Credit card companies and lenders are doing year-end accounting and desperately need to clear problem accounts from their books before audits begin. This creates a narrow window where they are far more willing to cut deals than any other time of year. Done with Debt has cracked the code on this timing advantage. They know exactly which companies are most motivated to negotiate right now and use this insider knowledge to get results you can't achieve on your own. Best part, no bankruptcy, no new loans, no credit damage. In fact, most clients end up with more money in their pocket within the first month because they're no longer drowning in minimum payments. This window will not stay open forever. Once Q4 hits, lenders tighten up again and your leverage disappears. Get started now while you still have time. Go to donewithdebt.com, talk with one of their specialists for free. That is donewithdebt.com. Do not allow debt to ruin your life. I've seen people who let it pile up and it adds to all this anxiety and the phone calls and take advantage of the tools to deal with it right now. Go to donewithdebt.com. The Nobel Peace Prize Committee announced a few days ago that Trump is not going to get the Peace Prize. He's been campaigning for it. A lot of his supporters have been campaigning for it. He's ended a bunch of wars. They won't give it to him. They gave it instead to a Venezuelan political activist, Maria Corina Machado. Okay, probably most people don't know anything about Maria Corina Machado. She was an activist against the Maduro regime. Maduro is the dictator, left-wing dictator of Venezuela. And it seems that he lost the last election, but he held on to power anyway. And she gets the prize. This, as President Trump is increasing his attacks on Venezuelan drug runners, as there are even rumors that we might go to war in Venezuela. Rumors that just remain, in the periphery and the commentariat. But nevertheless, there's obviously a real tension heating up between the United States and Venezuela. What do we think about Maria Corina Machado getting this award? I, for one, think it's great. Because the Nobel Committee was not going to give it to Trump. Hopefully, we'll force them to next year. But here's how she reacted to the prize. I dedicated this award to the Venezuelan people and President Trump because I believe that's absolutely fair. We, the Venezuelan people, are absolutely grateful to President Trump for the way he has supported democracy and freedom in the Americas. I love her. Give her a second one. We should give her some prize. America should give this woman some prize just for that line alone. So Trump comes out. He says, hey, have you seen all the wars I've ended? Have you seen? I ended the war in the Middle East. This is pretty good, right? Come on. I should get the Nobel Peace Prize. And then all the libs on the Nobel Committee say, we're not going to give you the Nobel Peace Prize. We're not. Actually, we're going to give the Nobel Peace Prize to someone else. And then someone else comes along and was like, I dedicate this to Trump. And the Nobel Prize Committee says, no. That was a reverse Uno card. Huh? I think by the transitive property of accolades, President Trump just won the Nobel Peace Prize. He at least got a share of it. Great. It's in a way, it's funnier than him actually getting the prize. They're just like, we have to. It's so obvious we should give it to Trump, but I really don't want to. I can't do their silly Norwegian accents, so I really don't want to. So what do? I know we'll give it to this Venezuelan lady, right? Don't the Hispanics, they hate Trump, don't they? She's like, totally love Trump, man. Here you go. I don't know why she sounds like a cholo, but anyway, I think it's great. She's terrific, and it's wonderful that she recognized Trump's role, even in that. Now. I think even the libs are going to have to admit this is a big deal. Some are quibbling. They say, well, Trump isn't really responsible for ending that war in where was it? Between India and Pakistan. India and Pakistan were going to work out a deal after increasing fighting and bombing raids and all the rest. And so he really shouldn't get credit for that. Or he shouldn't get credit for, what was it, something like Serbia or something, or in Thailand? I don't know. Anyway, there were a lot of little skirmishes kicking off. He shouldn't really get, well, what about Israel-Iran? It was pretty good. And this, I think, if the Knesset gives you a standing ovation, it says you're responsible for ending this war, I think you got to admit Trump did it. Jonathan Capehart of MSNBC, big lib on the big lib cable network, goes on another liberal network, PBS, and admits what his multiple audiences do not want to hear. Trump got this done.
Look, I'm going to say something that I have never said before and that this audience has never heard me say before. Kudos to the president. I think we are at this point because the president was single-mindedly focused on getting a deal done, getting the hostages out. The hard part comes after he leaves the region, after we get past phase one, assuming we get the 20, the Israeli hostages released, the 20 who are presumed alive, after the 2,000 Palestinians are released by Israel.
Oh, yes, a slight correction to Jonathan Capehart here. Good on him for admitting reality, but he says, okay, so the war has ended after 2 years and the hostages have been released and all the things that people said were not going to happen, they did happen. But now is when the hard part comes. I think that part was pretty hard. I think that was pretty hard, wasn't it? Because the war kicked off on Joe Biden's watch, on the watch of the liberals when the Democrats had the government. And they couldn't prevent it from happening. And then they couldn't resolve it for years. And then Trump comes in and he resolves it pretty quickly. This is the intractable place, the Middle East, in the Holy Land in particular. And it took him about 8 months. And then he solved it. He fixed it. That was very hard. That was very, very hard. You guys couldn't do it. He did it. Now, he's right. There's more hard stuff to follow, of course. But okay. And I have to say, good on Capehart. He's on the other side. He is with the most liberal cable network. He's on PBS. He's so, okay. Good on him, because what this means is there is no room for confusion. This was all Trump and Rubio and the whole administration, but it was all the Trump admin. And it was extremely impressive. You hear that, Nobel Committee? You hear that? You hear that, Hillary Clinton? You hear that, Democrats? It's not close. Sometimes in politics, we say, well, it's a little ambiguous and it was this and that. Did Reagan really win the Cold War? Or was it really Gorbachev? You know, like the Nobel Committee wanted to say it was all Gorbachev and what? This was all Trump. It was just all Trump. He did it. Nya, 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 nya. This is a great cause for celebration. Okay, speaking of the Jews, Jerry Nadler has accused Bobby Kennedy Jr. of anti-Semitism. This was a few days ago. I don't want to let this go, though. Jerry Nadler, who is one of the more cartoonish members of Congress, liberal Democrat from New York, Nadler tweets out. I'm not going to give you the context. I'm just going to read you the tweet, okay? And I want you to try to guess the context. He says, "This is an anti-Semitic remark. I call on all my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to clearly denounce it." He split the infinitive. That's the least of it here. What was the anti-Semitic remark? Here we go. Some lib-awful Democrat lobs this accusation of anti-Semitism. Have you get what is it about? Immigration? Is it about taxes? Is it about space lasers? What's it about? What did RFK say? Do you have your guess? Here it is.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's also there's many other confirmation studies. There's 2 studies that show children who are circumcised early have double the rate of autism. And it's highly likely because they're given Tylenol. So, none of this is dispositive, but all of it is stuff that we should be paying attention to.
He said that babies who were given Tylenol have a higher rate of autism. And that is an anti-Semitic remark. RFK, citing studies from Harvard, Johns Hopkins, Mount Sinai, not exactly a Gentile institution, last I checked, Columbia, on and on and on, says actually when you give Tylenol to babies in utero and really little babies, they have a higher incidence of autism and other neurological developmental issues. And for this, Jerry Nadler says it's an anti-Semitic remark. Why? Because he says one of the reasons that little babies are given Tylenol is because they're circumcised. And Jews are circumcised, therefore, ergo, anti-Semitism, QED. More than half of American baby boys are circumcised. And that's down, actually, in recent years. Used to be, in the mid-90s, it was like 68%. The vast majority of American boys were circumcised. Not because they're Jews. 2.4% of American baby boys are Jews. That number is pretty steady. The vast majority, statistically, all of the boys in America who are circumcised are not Jews. They're Gentiles. Now, why are they circumcised? It's not because Christianity makes you circumcised. It's because America is a Protestant country. And so we come from, or was a Protestant country. Increasingly, we're a Catholic country. That's a discussion for another time. But we were founded by a bunch of Puritans and separatists and Brownists and Pilgrims. And they had some eccentric rituals, and one of which is they would circumcise. So there's nothing wrong with circumcising somebody. There's nothing wrong with it. It looks like there might be some health benefits to it. It's not, if you're not, as long as you're not doing it for some religious reason. St. Paul says you don't need to be circumcised anymore. Baptism is now your circumcision. But if you just do it for a cultural reason or something, there's nothing wrong with it. But basically all Gentiles in America. How is that anti-Semitism? There are very few people who are more philo-Semitic than I am. I'm from New York. I don't know. I like the ancient nomadic tribe. I know now it's very fashionable to hate the ancient nomadic tribe, but I like them. But baseless accusations of anti-Semitism at Bobby Kennedy Jr. for parroting some Harvard study on Tylenol, it does not help the tribe. Okay, that's not Jerry Nadler. You are not helping any situation, and maybe don't give the little kids Tylenol if you're going to do the snip. Okay, I don't know. I'm not a medical doctor, but I am a political observer, and I would say that kind of accusation not fair. Okay, speaking of children, a Christian foster couple in Massachusetts is going to lose their kids because they refuse to contradict their religion. They refuse to sign on with LGBTism. We'll get to that momentarily. First, though, talk about providential timing. All of these stories, I want to tell you about Preborn. Go to preborn.com/Knowles. In a world where misinformation spreads fast and the truth can be hard to find, Linda's story shows what happens when someone gets the support they really need. When Linda found out she was pregnant, she was completely overwhelmed. Even though she believed abortion wasn't right, the fear was almost unbearable. She did not know who to talk to or where to go. That is when she found a Preborn network clinic. The people there did not judge her. They prayed with her, listened to her, and helped her see past the fear that was clouding everything. With their support, Linda chose to have her baby. Preborn helps mothers in their most uncertain moments, giving them the clarity and compassion they need to choose life. This is why truth matters now more than ever. Because when a mother hears it, lives are saved. Just $28 provides that truth through a free ultrasound. This is your chance to make a difference that echoes for generations to come. I personally support this organization. I think it is a phenomenal ROI if you want to do some good and help some innocent lives. Pick up your phone, dial pound 250, say baby, B-A-B-Y. It is pound 250, say baby, or donate securely at preborn.com/Knowles, K-N-W-L-E-S. That is preborn.com/Knowles. Folks, in 1492, Christopher Columbus had the galleons to sail off the edge of the map while everyone else cowered at home. To quote a well-known man, he discovered America is what he did. He was a brave Italian explorer, and in this house, Christopher Columbus is a hero. End of story. Today, on Columbus Day, Jeremy's Razors is celebrating a time when great men were celebrated and Western civilization had a spine. Right now, the Sprint 3 razor, here it is. Look at that. Look at that beautiful razor. The Sprint 3 razor plus a full year of supply blades is just $49.99. Stainless steel blades, moisturizing aloe strip, an ergonomic handle built for men who aren't afraid to claim their territory, starting with their own face. If you want to discover a new world that isn't afraid to honor great men, go to jeremy'srazors.com. Get your Sprint 3-year supply for a deal so good, it'll make the Spanish crown jealous. Great men shave greatly. Go to jeremy'srazors.com today. That is jeremy'srazors.com. That foster parents in Massachusetts told by the government, you're going to lose your kids because you're Christian. Here is the local news report.
Christian faith, it really drives us toward that. James says that true undefiled religion is to care for the fatherless.
The Woburn couple reconfigured their home to care for 8 foster children, including a baby with complex medical needs, for 15 months.
Every night for 15 months, we were up at least three times.
Yeah. That's in addition to their own 3 kids. And they were ready to keep going until Massachusetts Department of Children and Families pulled their license last spring. Foster family must accept a child's assertion of their LGBTQIA+ identity, address children by their names and pronouns, and support gender-neutral practices regarding clothes and physical appearance.
We had asked, is there any sort of accommodation? Can you waive this at all? We will absolutely love and support and care for any child in our home, but we simply can't agree to go against our Christian faith in this area. And we're ultimately told, no, you must sign the form as is, or else you will be delicensed.
Do you see the irony here too? The reason that they took these kids in, these are foster parents. These aren't parents who are adopting newborn babies. There are about 34 couples who want to adopt a newborn baby for every newborn baby put up for adoption. Demand vastly outstrips supply. If we're talking about the market, as we now do, I guess, for newborn babies. For foster parents, younger kids, teenagers who are in orphanages and state institutions who then go to live with supply vastly outstrips demand. Okay, so this couple says, we are Christian, and because of our Christian faith, we feel called to do what most people don't want to do, and that is take in these kids who need a home. We're going to do that. And the state of Massachusetts came in and said, okay, that's great, but you're not allowed to be Christian anymore. Good, yeah, you can do that. But if you do this thing that your faith has impelled you to do, you have to stop being Christian or we're going to take your kids away. Because it's not possible to be Christian and affirm the LGBT identity. You can't do it. I know there are all sorts of flavors of religion that identify as Christian. They call themselves Christian, but the church's teaching on this subject in particular is pretty clear going back about 2,000 years. You just can't have it. Can't do it. So they say, well, we're not going to renounce our faith for anything. But it's particularly crazy to renounce our faith in order to do the thing that our faith has impelled us to do. Massachusetts says, okay, too bad. And we'll go find some gay couple to give the kids to. Sorry, we're not going to allow the kids to be raised Christian. That's what the state of Massachusetts is saying. We will not allow foster children to be raised in a Christian household, which is obviously religious discrimination. And beyond religious discrimination, it's obviously wrong. There are all sorts of ideas that call themselves religion. Some true, some false. But in this case, it's so obviously wrong. You have to raise a kid in an LGBT LMNOP household or affirming household. Can't raise them in a Christian household? That's crazy. What this reveals, though, is the absurdity of the left's argument when they accuse us of trying to enforce our morality on others. Why do you care? Why do you care? That's what they always say. I actually really enjoyed going on the show. I was on Adam Friedland's show. He's this left-wing comedian. Very fun. We had a good, great conversation. You can catch it on his YouTube channel. But one of the moments where the interview got kind of spicy is when he was really hitting me on the trans stuff. And he said, well, what do you care? Why do you care? I don't care about this. I said, oh, great. If you don't care, then cut it out. The left was the aggressor on this issue. They're the ones who forced the guys in the girls' bathrooms. They're the ones who forced the rainbow flags all over the public square. And So we responded to that. But if you're saying you don't care, oh, great, wonderful. Oh, then I guess we're in agreement. You don't care, so give it up. Shut up about the LGBT stuff. Get the stupid rainbow flags out of the streets. Get the men out of the girls' bathroom. Great, you don't care. Because you don't care, we do care about morality, so good. Then I guess we're in agreement. They say, well, no, I mean, like, when I say, why do we care? I mean, Christians need to shut up, is basically what the left is saying. They don't really mean it. What do you care? It's funny, Adam actually cut out part of the interview where we were talking about the transgender ideology. I said, do you think it's true? They said, well, I just don't care. I said, I didn't ask if you care. I asked if you think it's true. And they cut that part out of the interview because obviously people care. You should care. And also, I think most people on the left know that it isn't true. They know that the transgender thing is fake. They know a lot of the LGBT stuff is fake, but I don't know, the most charitable read I can give is they think it's nice. They think it's nice to lie to people. I think that's sincerely what most of them think. And so they say, stop making us answer questions of truth and falsehood. Can't you just be nice? Why do you care? It's like, well, you care a lot. And I think the truth is good and will set you free. And I think falsehood is bad. I think lying is bad. And I think it's disrespectful. And I think it leads you into misery. But one thing I think we should all be able to agree on is we all care. We all care. And there will be some kind of moral framework for the law. So it's either going to be ours or it's going to be yours. And it doesn't even have to feel that personal because, that's kind of the way the left views it is. It's just factions vying for dominance over the other. That's not how I think about morality. I think the only way that we can come to, a peaceful resolution for the law is to think about the law as something objective that can be arrived at through reason. That is the premise of self-government. That is what our founding fathers thought and our framers thought. And so that's where this question about truth and falsehood comes from. Is it true? Let me just ask you, especially there are plenty of liberals and left-wingers who watch the show. Let me just ask you, do you really think, when we're talking about trans or whether we're talking about marriage, do you really think men and women are exactly the same? So similar that a union of two men is the exact same as the union of two women? Is the exact same as the union of a man and a woman? Do you really think that? Do you really? Well, I just don't care. I just want people to do whatever they. That's not what I asked. It's not what I asked. What do you think? It's just us gals. It's just you and me. Come on, it's just you and me. What do you think? You know it's not. You know it's not. Well, it doesn't mean that I want to enforce it in the lunch. Shh. It's okay. Hold on. You know it's not true. You know it's a lie. You think it's some kind of noble lie. You think it's some kind of comforting lie, but it's a lie nonetheless. Let's go further. Do you think it's good to enshrine lies into our laws? What do you think? I don't care. What do you think? No, probably not, right? Probably not. Well, what's the worst that could go wrong? Well, okay, here's one example. Christian parents who take in these orphans who no one else wants to take in, they're told they can't anymore because the state will discriminate against them and force them to stop being Christian if they want to keep their kids. That's like one example of how things go wrong when you enshrine lies into law. Women getting raped in bathrooms by men who are allowed to go in there. That's another thing that goes wrong when we enshrine lies into laws. Girls losing their scholarships and their trophies when we allow men to compete against them in sports and we pretend they're all the same. That's another thing that goes wrong. A mass increase in anxiety, depression, and suicidality as we encourage the LGBT LMNOP identity with a special focus on the T. That's another thing that goes wrong. Suicide rates remaining practically the same before and after the transgender procedures that destroy people's bodies. That's another thing that, need I go on? Need I go on? Because we could be here all day. I think most people know the truth. I think most people know, even if they don't want to admit it, like my left-wing comedian friend on that show in the part that was cut out. I know most people don't want to admit it. I think most people know that a man can't really be a woman. And most people know that there's something a little bit odd about, a couple of fellas or a couple of chicks. And it's a little bit weird, right? It's not, let's just say not exactly the same as a man and a woman. I think most people know that. The only question is, will you have the courage of your convictions to actually say the thing that you know to be true, and further, to behave that way in public and in politics and put that into the law? Put truth into the law instead of lies. Will you have the courage to do that? That's the question. Here's a little warning if your answer to that part is no. The other people will have the courage to put lies into the law. The other people will have the courage to try to force you to lie. The other people will have the courage, a dubious kind of courage, but a courage nonetheless, to force you to renounce your faith if you want to perform an act of charity. They will do it. So someone's going to do it. Is it going to be you on the side of the good stuff and the true stuff, or is it going to be the other side? But it's inevitable that there's going to be some moral framework in the law, because it's going to be inevitable that people care, because you're human beings and we're social creatures and we're inclined to live in society. So we care. That's how it works. Speaking of moral issues and the rainbow stuff, even the liberal media admitting some good news from the Supreme Court on so-called, this is a really loaded phrase, conversion therapy. October is packed with new releases on DailyWire Plus. We're talking new series, new documentaries, and the premiere of Friendly Fire. Join me, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Andrew Klavan, unscripted, unfiltered, no moderators, nothing off limits, live this Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. Plus, special appearances from Isabel Brown, a visit from Jeremy with your first look at the Pendragon cycle. Do not miss a moment. Join now, get 40% off a new annual membership with code FALL40 this month. There's more happening on DailyWire Plus than ever before. Do not miss it. Go to dailywire.com and join today. My favorite comment on Friday is from the Drummers Workshop, Norm's Music. Wow, of course. How many, we should do an analysis of what percentage of my favorite comments, because I don't really look at the names generally. I just pick my favorite comment. What percentage of them are from this one commenter among the zillions of comments on these videos? This one, the Drummers Workshop, Norm's Music, who says, in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. In 2025, Trump should receive the Nobel Prize. It's a near rhyme. It's at least assonant. That's a good one. NPR is admitting that conservatives are probably about to win a big case at the Supreme Court. Remember, I told you a week or two ago, I said the Supreme Court is hearing this case on so-called conversion therapy. There's this Christian therapist in Colorado. It's always Colorado for some reason. She's there, and patients come to her and they say, I have these unwanted sexual urges and intrusive thoughts and desires and stuff, and I want ways of coping with them. And she's not allowed to help them because there's a ban on so-called conversion therapy. And what's weird about this is, if a patient went in and said, hey, I'm straight, but I want to be gay, I don't know. They'd probably put it differently. They'd say, hey, they'd probably phrase it in this really liberal way. They'd say like, hey, I'm in a bourgeois and oppressive romantic construct, and I want to explore my sexuality and my identity, and I don't know, whatever. That's what they say. But the bottom line would be, if a patient walked into a shrink and said, I want to go from straight to gay, there would be nothing wrong with that. I'll put it in even more concrete terms. If a boy walked into the shrink and said, I want to be a girl, I think I am a girl, there would be nothing wrong with the shrink saying, okay, Sally, well, let's explore that. What color dresses do you like? But if patients walked in and wanted to go the other way, that would be illegal. The psychologist could lose his or her license, which means that there's no ban on conversion therapy. A boy can walk into a shrink and say, I want to be a girl, and the shrink not only can convert him, but is actually kind of obligated to convert him. So that conversion therapy is totally fine. It's just the other kind of conversion. Converting in the other direction, you're not allowed to do, which is obviously viewpoint discrimination. And even NPR is admitting this. Even NPR, covering the oral arguments in the Supreme Court case, says Supreme Court seems highly doubtful of limits on conversion therapy for minors. So just the highlights here. This evangelical therapist in Colorado says that her free speech rights are being violated because she's not allowed to give advice in one direction, but she is in the other direction. Justice Alito, very solid, maybe the most solid guy on the court, says, this looks like blatant viewpoint discrimination, as we just said. That was the conservative read. I think if you're even semi-literate, you have to recognize it's obviously viewpoint discrimination. Now, what is viewpoint discrimination? It's what it sounds like. It's when you favor, you permit one viewpoint to the exclusion of other viewpoints in public life, which, according to our present jurisprudence, you're not allowed to do. There's actually a deeper discussion about that and what viewpoint discrimination even means. And I take it on a lot in my book, Speechless, Controlling Words, Controlling Minds, which you can get, wherever great books are sold. But in any case, according to the law, as it is now, you're not allowed to have viewpoint discrimination. And Alito says this looks like viewpoint discrimination. Ketanji Jackson, who is the Supreme Court justice who was befuddled by Senator Blackburn's question, what is a woman, during her confirmation hearing. She said, I'm not a biologist. She laughed. She said, I don't know what a woman is. She's 2 degrees from Harvard. Ketanji Jackson disagreed with Alito. I'm not sure she was able to form a coherent sentence or argument, but she disagreed with him in any case. And she's on the side of the ban, according to the reporting. However, this isn't just a conservatives on one side, liberals on the other side issue. Even Justice Elena Kagan, who was dean of Harvard Law School, who is a huge lib, but is intelligent at least. She seems to be on the side of Alito here and on the side of the evangelical therapist who says this is viewpoint discrimination. She said, quote, let's just assume that we're in a normal free speech land rather than in this kind of doctor land. And if a doctor says, I know you identify as gay and I'm going to help you accept that, and another doctor says, I know you identify as gay and I'm going to help you change that, and one of those is permissible and the other is not, that seems like viewpoint discrimination. Almost the exact scenario that I just mentioned. The reason I love this story is, one, it's good for the law. It's good for a conservative culture. It's good for the rights of therapists. It's good for the rights of patients, for that matter. But also, you know how much I hate to say I told you so? I called this one years ago, when even the conservatives were saying, well, I'm certainly opposed to conversion therapy. They thought it was like Mike Pence hooking you up with electrodes to, a car battery or something. I don't know, whatever the libs made us think it was. And I thought about even the phrase for a second. I said, wait, this is obviously a polemical, stupid slogan, because all therapy is conversion therapy. Because the whole point of therapy, maybe not how it's actually practiced, but the whole point in principle is that you go in to change your ideas and behavior. You say, I have ideas and behavior that are distressing me, and I'm going to go see this psychologist to change them, to convert from one set of ideas and behavior to another. So if you were actually to outlaw so-called conversion therapy, you would be outlawing the practice of clinical psychology, which is why it's simply a political slogan. It's just a polemical phrase. And it looks like that phrase has outrun its usefulness. Stephen Pinker at Harvard, he has this phrase that he coined, the euphemism treadmill, where he says, we have all of these terms that we use, these happy clappy slogans, not merely to soften harsh truths, like you call an old woman, you call her a lady of a certain age. It's not a lie. It's just kind of softening a harsh truth. You don't call her an old hag or something. But with the left, they use these euphemisms to lie about the truth. So they'll say, a criminal is a justice-involved person. That's the opposite of what it is. They'll call a man a trans woman. That's not softening a truth. That's just lying, right? That's the opposite of it. And the same thing here. Conversion therapy. It's not a euphemism. It's sort of the opposite of a euphemism. It's a dysphemism. It's it's trying to make a reality seem worse than it actually is. But it's run out, because eventually people figure out what the score is. They say, hold on, an undocumented dreamer, future American, whatever. It's just like a face tattooed gangster. It's an illegal alien. Oh, huh. And then you have to come up with a new euphemism. Well, they're going to have to come up with a new dysphemism here. They're going to have to come up with a new scare slogan, because I think people realize the jig is up. Now, speaking of dubious laws, I love this. I cannot go before I get to this one. Gavin Newsom, Patrick Bateman himself over there in California, wants to be the next Democrat nominee for president. Newsom is he's doing this schizophrenia act. Speaking of psychological conditions, he's doing the schizophrenia act where on the one hand, he wants to seem like the moderate. He's going to be the Bill Clinton figure in this race as the left has gone so woke. And so he's going to try to be friends with Charlie Kirk. He's going to try to be friends with Steve Bannon. He's going to reach across the aisle and have conversations. That's one side. Then on the other side, he's going to, through his press office, justify the potential assassination of Stephen Miller by calling him the same phrase that Charlie Kirk's killer called him. You're a fascist. On the other hand, he's going to be the mayor of San Francisco who performs so-called gay marriages before it's legal. He's going to be this super lib. So what is he? Is he the moderate? Is he the super lib? He's trying to have it both ways because he knows he can't win the primary if he's not a super lib, but he can't win the general if he's not a moderate. At this point, because the left has gone so far and the right has taken over the common sense. Sometimes political radicals actually can win general elections, but for the left right now, that can't happen because they've ceded so much of the culture, so much of the center ground, so many of the demographics that they used to rely on. Okay, so what is Newsom doing now? He's done the moderate thing a little bit now. He's trying to bolster his left-wing bona fides. He signed a law creating an Office of Reparations for Slavery in California. A couple years ago, he got this ball rolling. There were going to be reparations for slavery. Now, mind you, there is currently no program for reparations for slavery, but there is now an office to distribute the reparations that don't exist for the program that does not exist. That's not even the funniest part. The funniest part is, I don't know how many of you are history buffs. California was admitted to the Union as a free state. There was never slavery in the state of California. Furthermore, California, go dig back to your 9th grade history. California was admitted to the Union in the Compromise of 1850. The admission of California to the Union was one of the chief causes of the Civil War, which was fought, not entirely, but to a significant degree, to abolish slavery, over the question of slavery. If there is one place on earth, not just in America, on earth, that should not feel any historical guilt or responsibility for slavery, it is the state of California. So, of course, they lead the country in establishing an office for reparations. You couldn't make it up. A Hollywood screenwriter in California could not make it up. For Newsom, the profound ignorance that it would take to do this, or the profound cynicism and low estimation of his own constituents. Which is worse? I don't know. But ignorance is a cause of slavery. Ignorance and lack of discipline. Those are the two causes of true slavery. Because the truth makes you free. We were talking about that earlier. Okay, today's Music Monday. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, KNWLAS at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.